I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And I'm JT, and I'm very close.
He's very close to the camera.
Very close. I have to get a longer HDMI cord soon.
So until then, you get to see every inch of JT's face, very up close and personal.
Flaring nostrils and all.
Yes, if you're watching on YouTube. Otherwise, you're probably like, how close is he to the camera?
Very. in Chris and I's line of work, we call this an extreme close-up.
An extreme close-up.
Yes.
It's great for reaction shots.
Yes. Yeah, Debria's going to have a field day with that one because JT usually makes plenty of faces.
Can we get a spit take?
Right.
Perfect.
Let's
just insert that every single time we say anything remotely
shocking.
Or it doesn't even have to be that shocking.
Well, today we're going to start out a fun little mini segment, if you will, for the spooky season of October.
Spooky.
As many of you probably know, we are horror movie and just movie buffs in general, particularly Chris and JT. But we decided it would be fun if we discussed some of the hauntings that inspired horror movies.
Oh, yeah.
So today's first episode of that little segment is going to be about a haunting in Connecticut, which is just a very interesting case in general.
It was one of my favorite movies as a teenager.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it.
It's a great movie. It really is. And if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it.
Spoilers
and then, yeah,
ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go watch it and then return back to this episode because we will spoil some things. Otherwise, though, before we get into that, we do want to thank some parajunkies that have recently joined us.
Yes.
So first off, we want to thank Miriam Mendoza, Kristen Nichols, Laura Sleeper, Sky J, and Juanita, a.k.a. Boom.
Goes the dynamite.
What an excellent what an excellent screen name. So yes, thank you guys so much for becoming Parajunkies. If you would like to become a Parajunkie, you can find us over on Patreon. We have lots of fun. We have exclusive merch. We have exclusive episodes. You get all sorts of fun things.
Yep.
The Parajunkies are actually getting the second episode of our radio play, Beneath the Cobblestone, on Friday the 13th. They're going to get that second episode.
Appropriate.
Also, if you want to become an Ultra Parajunkie, which is our highest tier of Parajunkie, that is going to be a really good time to do it because of the fact that until Halloween, we are giving the Ultra Parajunkies an extra exclusive bit of merch. If you want to become a Parajunkie, maybe consider becoming an Ultra Parajunkie. It's a very fun piece of merch.
You've been sitting on the fence. You get to actually say you're Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You're ultra cool.
Ultra.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I've actually spent a really long time designing this surprise for the Ultra Parajunkies. And if you are currently an Ultra Parajunkie, your gift is in the mail.
Yes.
Yes.
Ooh.
It is in the mail, and it is very fun.
Likely story.
Right? Now, so thank you guys so much for becoming Parajunkies, and thank you to the Parajunkies who continue to stay in the Parajunkie realm on Patreon. We really appreciate it.
Oh, and if you're one of the few Ultra Parajunkies who have not sent me your current address, please do that so I can get your gift in the mail.
Yes.
Yes, but everyone who sent an address, it's already sent.
Excellent. Alrighty, well, let's go ahead then and dive right on into the haunting in Connecticut.
Ooh.
Yes, New England in general is just such a spooky place to be.
Chock full of ghosts.
It really is. Connecticut's got plenty of ghosts, as you can imagine. The Warrens
headquarters there.
Yeah. So Connecticut in general is just a very haunted state. Massachusetts is very haunted. So if you haven't been up to New England and you like ghosts, you'd have a field day, just exploring all the hauntings there. And especially the hauntings from like the 80s and the 70s, they seem to be the most prevalent still to this very day, which is pretty interesting.
Yep. Same thing with serial killers.
It's true.
70s and 80s, the heyday.
It was the...
For CCTV.
So, the bizarre thing about following the serial killers were a relatively new designation. In the 70s and 80s, there was a fervor. We call it a heyday, but in fact, there are just as many. We're still dealing with it. It's a problem, but we don't have the celebrity status of serial killers the way we did in the 70s and 80s. 70s and 80s, every time it came up, it was a very exciting thing and I didn't know this growing up. I didn't realize how fresh the term serial killer was. Serial killer was not a term until the late 60s, early 70s. They actually didn't use that. I think they had terms like repeat killer or things of that nature, but the term serial killer didn't come about, and that launched this incredible obsession. Because I always thought serial killers, Jack the Ripper was a serial killer, and surely they called him that then. I was like, no, they called him Jack the Ripper. And so it's interesting because I think that it was how excited we were, because like when I was in high school, they came out with like serial killer trading cards, and there were all these like
what?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was not weird, but
well, if you're a true crime nerd like JT and I, it's fun. Not that we condone what they're doing, but but
well, it was interesting because it was you would think that serial killers were just having this. They were like comic book supervillains. You're waiting for Batman to show up and punch a serial killer in the face.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But you began to realize that serial killing is almost epidemic proportions of the type of psychosis that goes into it, and we only know the serial killers that we assign to a very specific mode, MO. So it's very weird that our fascination has been like peaked in the 70s and 80s, and then we kind of like it's evened out. But I think there are just as many like really dastardly killers out there. We're desensitized, maybe.
Yeah, no, that's definitely
there was a study that was put out that I think they said there's around 200 possible active serial killers still in the U.S., which makes a lot of sense.
And we can only catch the ones that fit into our MO system. There's a Suspect Zero. I know we're getting off on a tangent.
Yeah.
But there's Suspect Zero, who they assume is a truck driver.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But he does not have an MO. He is not like, it's not all blonde women. It's not all children. It's not, there's nothing that, the only thing that they kind of get is he's a decapitator.
Oh.
But he's not, but they're theorizing that he doesn't always decapitate.
Sometimes he's not feeling into it.
That's extra work. That's a lot of work. Let's face it.
So, even though we had our nice little serial killer moment, that technically
weird
has
tangent.
nothing.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with
nothing to do with the haunting in Connecticut. But
that's how the show goes.
Yeah.
Listen, we're just in a serial killer mood right now.
From guts to ghosts.
Let's do it. Ghosts. Yes. So, to give you kind of like a brief understanding of what was going on. So The Haunting in Connecticut, first off, is a film that's from 2009. It was a horror movie that was promoted as being based on a true story. And so, first off, before it was a horror film, it was on a TV show called A Haunting.
Right.
Yes. So you see that particular show was a Discovery Channel show. And they basically took people's stories and did not live, but they did reenactments of the scenes. And if you have not watched A Haunting, you need to watch that show because it was fantastic.
Yeah. I almost think that the story that they based A Haunting in Connecticut on was a 2-episoder. I think they had to to be continued.
Right.
I think because it seems like they packaged it as a documentary of its own at some point. But yeah, Haunting in Connecticut was based on a Haunting Connecticut
Right.
episode.
And
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I learned that this morning.
yeah, it's which is pretty interesting. And honestly, they could have turned a lot of those episodes into full-fledged horror films because there was some very frightening episodes. We were discussing beforehand. There was one episode that always stuck with me, and I think I've mentioned it on the podcast a long time ago, about how this child, he would always see this naked woman around his home, and he got up to go to the restroom in the middle of the night, and he walks into his bathroom and feels like she's in there, but he doesn't see her. And when he pulls back the shower curtain, there's just this naked lady that's like got this crazy like white hair, and she's super gangly and gaunt, and she lashes out at him from the bathtub. And I'm like, I've never forgot that image in my life.
No.
I think about it every single time I enter a bathroom at night.
Yeah, anytime a shower curtain is closed in a bathroom, you're always like, no.
No. She's in there. So if you haven't seen that show, you need to watch it. I'm sure Discovery Plus has it
I'm
somewhere.
sure it's streaming, yeah. Well, and now, Max is
That's true.
Discovery Plus.
So the story of how this went was in the 1980s, the Snedeker family moved into a home.
Bless you.
Oh, right. It's quite a last name, and you're going to hear it a lot to get used to it.
No.
The Snedekers.
The Snedeker family moved into a home in Southington, Connecticut, to be closer to a hospital where their son was being treated for cancer. So after moving in, the family claimed to have experienced a series of supernatural events. The house had previously been, this is where the spoiler comes in, because this is a twist in the film. So if you haven't seen it, stop right now.
Go watch it.
Or watch it. So the house had previously been a funeral home, and the family discovered embalming equipment in the basement where the child was living. They believed that the presence of these tools in the house's former use was connected to the paranormal activity that they were experiencing. So some of the paranormal encounters that they were having, the Snedeker family reported paranormal experiences that were quite disturbing, to say the least. Some of the claims included apparitions, which, I mean, if you're having a haunting, that's kind of comes with the territory. But various family members reported seeing shadowy figures or full-bodied apparitions, which people don't give enough credit to how rare that truly is
very
to
rare.
have a full-bodied apparition, because oftentimes spirits do not want to put all of that energy into forming a full-bodied apparition when they could just do a torso up and get the same effect, and use less energy. So,
Or just the places where light would hit, just the outline or things of that nature.
exactly. So that's already, an entity that's got enough energy stored up.
Got some spare energy there.
To go ahead and just use that. But these spirits were sometimes seen in old-fashioned clothing consistent with the time when the house was used as a funeral home. They would also experience phantom touches. Some family members claimed to feel unseen hands touching them, particularly at night. This would manifest as tugging on bed sheets, poking, or even more aggressive physical interactions such as scratching, hitting, biting, things like that.
Poltergeist.
Well,
A little more aggressive.
more aggressive than a poltergeist. Poltergeist, I think the film Poltergeist, which we'll do an episode on probably later
Soon
in the
enough.
month.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see, with Poltergeist, I feel like that movie really blurred the lines of what a true poltergeist is and what a demonic presence is.
And even in the movie itself, the poltergeist time is early. They actually misdiagnose the house. They actually suggest that it's a poltergeist activity early, only to realize that it's not poltergeist. It is active haunting. It is intelligent haunting. It is demonic presence.
Right.
And so, poltergeists are generally just kind of rambunctious. They're not, disturbances, I guess I should say.
Noisy ghost.
Noisy ghost. That's what it means, poltergeist. So we get our information and then we fuse it with all of the excess. But ideally, in the early stages when things were just moving around and when there were, you know, weird patterns of stuff, that was poltergeist activity or mislabeled poltergeist activity. Because many things seem like poltergeist, but then later turn out to be intelligent haunts or another type of haunting.
This is definitely a malevolent type haunting.
This is malevolent.
Biting is usually a pretty good, clear indication of something is not very fond of your presence.
No means no.
Exactly. Do not bite people. Also, poking. Like, that's just a weird way, in my opinion, to get someone's attention if I was a spirit. Like, poking's not the way I'm going to go about it.
Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Hey.
But I feel like that's also where the fear
Depends on where the poking is, though.
In the back or like
in the eye.
Oh,
for instance,
no, I don't.
We've experienced the eye poke.
We have,
so,
Madison experienced the eye poke.
I experienced that eye poke.
Yes, you have to go on Patreon to experience the eye poke.
Yeah, that was
ghostly eye pokes.
That was a delightful encounter. I really enjoyed that so much, as you can imagine. But anyway,
again, we digress.
But we digress. Yes. So regardless, though. There's also reports of mysterious illness, obviously outside of the child being sick.
Cancer is bad enough, but when you get the added bonus of supernatural illness.
Exactly. So
interestingly enough, really fast, I just looked up what Polter and Geist mean in German, and obviously Geist would be like ghost. Spirit. But Polter is a rumble.
Yeah, rumble.
A rumble spirit.
A rumble spirit.
But
that
rumble
makes it so much cuter sounding. It's a rumble spirit.
So, rumble meaning the sound, not rumble like a brawl.
Yeah.
You know, it's the onomatopoeia.
Oh, I didn't even think of a brawl. Yeah.
No, I thought of him rumbling around. Being
around.
That's the noise that the Pokemon Poltergeist makes, obviously.
That's Haunter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyways, so Carmen Snedeker, the mother, claimed that the house had an adverse effect on her son's health beyond his already existing cancer condition. So he was, which could just have been the treatments. Sure. And they're just mislabeling it as paranormal. But it's not unheard of for people to get sick in the presence of certain malevolent entities.
And it's also not uncommon for sick people to be the target of supernatural calamity, because in that we can state there is a lot of desperation. You know, you're more open to spiritual assault.
Exactly. So, unfortunately, he got a double whammy there. He was getting bit and he was getting extra sick, which is just not fun. There were also eerie noises.
Not an eerie noise.
A rumble, if you will.
A rumble. The family would hear unexplained noises like footsteps, doors creaking, open and closed, muffled voices. The basement where the embalming took place was a particular hotspot for these noises, which also makes sense, considering that it was a funeral home. Obviously, a lot of people would be coming in and out of places like that, especially if that's where the embalming would take place. You know, it takes more than one person oftentimes, especially back in that time, because now they have lifts for dead bodies so that the mortician can just slide the body on there and lift them down to wherever they need them to be. But at this point, it would have needed multiple human beings to carry dead weight. So that's not surprising to hear. And that very well could have been more residual type haunting and not exactly the same entity.
Before history is written, it's played. Before it's frozen in time, it's fought one shift at a time. Before it's etched in silver, it's carved in ice. What happens next will last forever. The Stanley Cup Final on ABC and ESPN Plus begins Saturday.
And you're just experiencing the hustle and bustle that would be a functioning funeral home. Objects would also move in the house and would allegedly move on their own. Common occurrences included dishes being thrown from cupboards and toys moving around by themselves.
That's every haunting. Every single haunting that I hear of is a dish being thrown.
Yeah.
Every single one. Like, that's their favorite thing to do.
Right. Well, at least it's not a knife.
It's because it's loud and it's light and it is discus.
It's discus, yeah.
So, yeah.
It's like a frisbee.
And
if I
another
was
thing
a
to think
ghost,
about is that dishes are very commonly used. So they are essential in a day-to-day.
Yeah, you're going to see if it's missing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to note these things.
That.
Yeah.
Also, maybe this is really off on a far shot, but do you think that they have like ghosts and porcelain have a connection? Maybe.
Oh, absolutely. That's a good call. Yeah. It's very, very possible that the idea that you can actually pull sound from clay. That while people were working on the clay, they're like, the grooves of the clay actually were collecting sound, and you play it like a record.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, there's
interesting, very interesting.
On just a side tangent, there's a guy on TikTok that has like a little machine that he hooks up to different plants, and they make noise and they make music of sorts. Like you'll hook him up to leaves and stuff, and he'll be like, "This is the song of a leaf," and I'm on a very different side of TikTok, as you can probably imagine, because neither of them know what I'm talking about. But it's kind of in that same regard that different things hold sound. So, interesting. That's an interesting point, Jay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the more outlandish reports that the Snedeker family gave was that the water in the house would occasionally turn to blood. This is...
Classic.
Just that?
Right.
Okay.
This is giving me Amityville horror, which,
Yeah.
if you haven't listened to that episode of From One to Wicked,
Yeah, that's the worst episode of all time because it ruined one of my favorite childhood stories.
Sure.
That was truly one of my favorite like bedtime stories and it completely trashed it. And it just makes it, I don't know, makes it like I believe the Baba Yaga more now, and stuff like that.
well, it's sad that that family just lied to the public to make money, which, I mean, it's like, just write the book and just like say it's a fiction and it would have been just as good.
Think of it as the Blair Witch Project.
Right.
No one's mad at the Blair Witch Project.
No.
And that's basically what it was. It was the sensationalistic selling of a book, utilizing a very true, horrific crime to kind of launch the the ghost story of it all.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I cannot stand? Just a side tangent. I know we have like so many side tangents, but Gen Zs, I can't stand when some Gen Z like hate on the Blair Witch Project. Because of course they've grown up in the 2000s, they've seen everything. Right. They're like, that's so unimpressive. I'm like, no, it was extremely impressive.
Amazing, brilliant. It was
brilliant.
Very brilliant. Brilliantly executed, brilliantly done. They even had like a mini documentary that came out prior to the movie being released.
Yeah.
That was like made in the same vein, in this documentary kind of way.
Yeah.
And I think I saw it before it was fully confirmed that it was not real. And you had that 50-50 belief. It's like, this could be real, this may not be real. And what they did that was so brilliant was they didn't do anything extravagant.
Yeah.
And so, watching it now, I mean, since
It
Blair Witch came out,
Still creeps me out.
since it came out, like the Saw franchise came out.
Yeah.
So it's very tame.
Yeah, it is. And then
the fact that there's
found
horror
footage.
Yeah, exactly. And found footage has gone so crazy.
It's been done now.
And it's been done and done and done.
Done.
But Blair Witch started it all. Really.
Blair Witch started it all. And I'm not saying all Gen Zs. There's some great Gen Zs out there, but those that are like, Blair Witch is not even that scary. I'm like, you have to put yourself in that's like saying that the birds, that's like Chris and I and Madison saying that the birds looks fake.
Well,
like Albert Hitchcock, that was so
or
stupid.
the fact that
fake.
in the
that's groundbreaking.
original Boris Karloff Frankenstein, the audiences of the time were terrified.
Yeah.
They said that people were fainting.
Yeah.
At the Frankenstein, the flat head, to which, if we watched it today, it's barely, a Saturday morning cartoon. You could see far more disturbing things on a Saturday morning cartoon than in that. But of the period, nobody had ever seen anything like that.
Yeah.
If we went back in time and showed a 1930s audience Saw, they would die. They would
they would just fall
dead.
It's true. In Zephyr Hills, there's an old movie theater, and my Nini said that she went to go see Jaws there, and she said a woman had a heart attack.
Wow.
During
Absolutely.
Jaws.
Absolutely.
And it's
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
Well, so now that JT's boomer tangent has ended.
Hey, you kids. With your fancy movies. With found footage on your phones.
I'm an old man, y'all.
So, continuing on.
What were we doing? Yeah.
Yes,
right?
we were talking about water turning to blood.
Right.
Yes. So that was a thing.
I checked the pipes for rust.
Right. So this supposedly happened
I
when
would taste
family.
it and see if it tasted like blood.
Well, so
All right, everybody, don't do that.
Don't.
I would do
If
it.
you see something that looks like blood, don't do the movie thing where they do that.
right.
There's so many things wrong with that.
There's so many bloodborne pathogens.
So many bloodborne and also, do you really think you can identify blood just that easily?
Yeah. No?
So
Okay.
so
Could be anything.
supposedly this would happen when family members tried to use the taps or when they were taking showers. Could you imagine?
No.
That's a whole new take on the shower scene.
No.
That's
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
Wow.
Don't want that.
No, don't want
Nobody
that.
wants that. I want to say that there is a movie out there where somebody's taking a shower and it turns to blood.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there is. I know it.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean,
you're right.
It's not. It's not beyond the horror scope.
No.
You go outside, get a tick, put the tick in the blood, see if the tick turns red. That's what I do. That's the country way I do it.
Oh my god.
I'm not going out catching ticks.
And you just go out, catch a tick.
I don't even know how to
really-
catch a tick. Wait, do you have tick catching, like?
Oh yeah.
You know how to?
Contraptions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it just your arm? Just put your arm.
Yeah,
in,
you just
and then,
like walk.
tick.
Yeah, traipse through the woods a little bit, and then and then spread your legs and
Oh, whoa.
they're there.
Oh god.
A haunting in Connecticut, you say?
Oh my god. Anyways, we're never getting through this. If
No, we're
JT
never
keeps
get-
talking. This is
know,
why we
sorry.
took away his microphone.
There was a time when this was a mini episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't take my medicine today.
Anyways, so there were also reports of disturbing visions. So Carmen Snedeker reported witnessing her mop water turning a blood red color without explanation. She also claimed to see entities in the house and then malevolent force. The most alarming claim was that the malevolent force that sexually assaulted both Carmen
Whoa.
and her niece while they were still living in the house
Holy crap!
occurred. Yeah.
Things got serious.
Yeah, so
What?
that's very on par with almost in between of a succubus and a demonic force. It's very weird.
It's very weird, although as the revelation will come out, it does. There's some disturbing information coming up
Right.
about the reason why it's haunted, or the reason why the building is haunted.
So they ended up actually calling in Ed and Lorraine Warren to perform an exorcism on the home.
Squad.
Yes. So the Snedeker family.
That's the beauty of living in Connecticut.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
It's true.
So the Snedeker family felt tormented by the alleged paranormal activities in their home and sought the assistance of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were well-known paranormal investigators and demonologists, as you all probably know by now. Their involvement in the Snedeker case has been added to their notoriety. So the way that the exorcism went down is they did a preliminary investigation. So before conducting the exorcism, the Warrens usually performed an investigation to determine the nature and severity of the haunting. They believed the Snedeker house was infested with powerful demonic entities, possibly due to its history as a funeral home. Then they would do a determination. So after their investigation, the Warrens concluded that an exorcism was necessary to rid the house of the negative energies and entities. Then when they conducted the exorcism, the details about the specific exorcism performed at the Snedeker house aren't as widely publicized as the haunting itself. Exorcisms typically involve religious rituals, prayers, and blessings to expel the malevolent spirits or energies from a place or a person. And typically in the team, this was Ed performing the exorcisms, even though
He's one of the only civilians, non-clergy, that had been granted permission
right.
to perform exorcisms by the Roman Catholic Church.
Exactly. And these rites usually require, like Chris said, the presence of a Catholic priest or someone with authority in conducting such rituals, but Ed Warren did get permission to do so because he had worked on so many cases that the Catholic Church deemed his faith strong enough, basically. And if you aren't familiar with how religious the Warrens are, watch a documentary on them. Ed Warren is a very staunchly religious man, so
Absolutely.
not a lot of things would shake that man. So
Actually, if you come to Savannah Underground, you get to hear one of his most famous lines at the end.
yeah,
I think
it's
we
true.
talked about that before.
Yeah.
We have.
Yeah.
In an older podcast episode. But yeah, come to Savannah Underground. It's fun.
So, a nice little plug.
A little plug, yes.
So, post-exorcism, though, following the exorcism, the Snedeker family reported a decrease in the paranormal activities, and over time, they claimed the haunting ceased altogether. They eventually moved out of the house. Now, publicity and skepticism started to arise. So, the story of the haunting and the subsequent exorcism gained significant attention. It was featured in a 1992 horror documentary titled A Haunting in Connecticut, which was a part of a Discovery Channel series, A Haunting. This documentary, along with the Warrens' involvement in later the 2009 film, have made the Snedeker case one of the more famous modern haunted house stories. However, with fame comes scrutiny. So many skeptics have claimed the validity of the family's claims and the Warrens' findings and the necessity of the exorcism. So it's worth noting that the line between fact and fiction can often blur in such cases, and especially when they garner significant media attention. While the Snedeker family and the Warrens maintained the authenticity of the events, there were still many doubters and skeptics because of the fact that many paranormal claims, definitive evidence is elusive, and much of it is left to personal belief and interpretation. Now, there's also some evidence that claims that the Snedekers, just like the Amityville horror case, may have padded some of the claims, like the blood and things like that, and the sexual assaults, to make the case seem more severe so that they could sell the rights and make money. That is just hearsay, technically. I'm not defining that as exact truth, but there's some evidence that shows that they may have been trying to garner some extra attention to
them hospital bills expensive.
Right. Well, and so there's been lots of controversy surrounding the veracity of the Snedekers' claims. Some skeptics argue that the story was exaggerated or fabricated for financial gain, and over the years, multiple versions of the story have emerged, and the truth behind the events remains a topic of debate. Also, when it comes to the actual film, A Haunting in Connecticut, they definitely took some creative liberties with the Snedeker story.
Generally do.
Just as a disclaimer, if you will, adding elements and altering events for dramatic purposes, as well with many movies claiming to be based on a true story. It's essential to approach them from a discerning mind, recognizing that filmmakers often prioritize entertainment over factual accuracy.
Yeah, of course.
So
that's why it's adaptations based on, inspired by. Those terms are oftentimes used. I watched the Pope's Exorcist.
Oh, that's a
last
great
night.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
Really love that movie. I'm a big fan of Gabriele Mort. I read his books. I met people who worked with him. But I don't think any of that movie was particularly factual.
There's no way.
But there were elements, lots of elements, and of course, the characterization that Russell Crowe did was in keeping with what most people said about Father Amort. So you want to be able to tell the most dynamic story possible. And the truth of the matter is, most hauntings don't get tied up in a bow. You don't get to know the why things happen or the how things happen. Oftentimes, it's just a series of events, a series of disturbances, and our minds naturally fill in the blanks. We naturally come up with these answers to, well, why would this happen? Because that's the satisfaction that we get from a ghost story. Like I'm a professional storyteller, and one of the ways that I tell stories is I always tell what happens to the living before I ever go into what happened in the past.
Yeah.
Because the moment is the aha. It's that, moment of, why is that happening to these people? And then you say something that connects the lines. So oftentimes when telling a ghost story, the benefit is, here's the creepy thing, and here's why it happened. When you do it the other way around, it becomes very flatlined. It's like, here's the terrible event, and here's what happened afterwards. There's no intrigue. There's no real, you see it coming. It's telegraphed. And in the case of Haunting in Connecticut, one of the storylines that kind of came out was the idea that the funeral director abused the bodies.
Oh.
That the funeral director was doing unseemly things with the bodies. And that is more than enough to be an aha moment, to be like, oh yeah, well that's why the spirits are mad. That's why the ghosts and that would definitely bring about malevolence and this idea. And there is this kind of natural sensation of, well, funeral homes and funeral directors, they're creepy. They're really not. It's an industry, and they're usually warm and loving people who are performing a very essential service in the process of our rituals of death. But thanks to Phantasm and The Tall Man, and thanks to countless movies where the funeral director is just this creepy, morbid person, we kind of have
Final Destination.
The Final Destination.
The first thing that comes to mind.
The perfect idea
He's
of
awesome.
the coroner who is like just in the corner going, I'm waiting for them to die. And you're like, oh yeah, your job is death. I'd also like to point out that Haunting in Connecticut has a sequel. Haunting in Connecticut 2.
Yeah, it does.
That takes place in Georgia.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that one's garbage.
It is garbage.
It's garbage.
And it too was based on one of the a haunting episodes, and it's a haunting in Georgia. But when they made the movie, they're like, we're going to capitalize on the Haunting in Connecticut success and call it a Haunting in Connecticut 2.
Yeah,
Georgia. It's like, I don't think you understand how geography works.
Yeah,
Right.
not even close.
Yeah,
not even
Like literally
900,000 miles, maybe.
right.
At the very least, an 18-hour drive.
Yeah.
It was really weird that they chose, because you could have just called it a Haunting in Georgia and gone with that. But also supposedly based, but more even looser, because it was. It was a garbage movie. It's not a great movie.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And it was sad
that
because
one to you, babe.
Yeah, well, A Haunting in Connecticut was a really good movie.
Right.
They did not pull punches, and they gave you a really intense ride. And A Haunting in Connecticut 2 was just capitalizing on the success.
That makes sense.
Yeah, 1,019 miles, 16 hours, 17 minutes from Georgia to Connecticut.
Yeah,
Wow.
there you go.
Yeah.
Boom goes dynamite.
And that's like from Atlanta to Hartford,
Right.
Where we are in Savannah. It's even further, I think.
Yeah. Might be.
It's and it's important to note when we discuss these cases, again, a lot of times people will fluff up their stories and things like that, especially when there's extra media attention brought to them. So it's not surprising to hear that there's claims that they may have lied about some things to
sensationalize.
Exactly. Because really, you don't. The MO of a demon isn't to pour blood out of your taps.
Right.
It's not really going to do that. So things like that, when I hear that, I'm like, I'm
Could a demon?
skeptical.
But because of the power of the demon and the intellect of the demon, couldn't the demon let things in that would want to do that? That's my only thing is, a demon's, we're talking about the demon's purpose. A demon's purpose is to create chaos. I mean, it's corrupt and chaos. Corrupt and chaos. Those are the two big words
but
for
they're
demonic entities.
They're going to go for more of your deterioration of your mind over pouring blood on you. Like, that's not super necessary.
And
that's more of a horror. It's a horror movie, truly.
The primary tool of the devil is deception.
Yeah.
And so making water appear to be blood, deception,
Mm-hmm.
it lowers your resistance. It makes you uncertain. And the more uncertain you are about reality, the more malleable you are to a dark entity. So, if you went that route, if that was the way you wanted to tell the story, a demon's primary tool is to make you uncertain about the reality around you.
Yeah.
And in that uncertainty, force you into behaviors and actions that are contrary to your better interest or your even belief structure.
Also, sorry.
No.
Also, think about where that blood's coming from. A bathtub, right? It's a bathtub, a shower where people get clean. And another something's blood, whether it's animal blood or human blood, that's an unclean thing. And it's possibly one of the most unclean things we can think of. I mean, EMTs, they're going to protect themselves from blood at all costs.
Yeah, it's an ideal psychological warfare. If you take the route of what would a demon do to you, or to diminish your faith in the reality you're living in, it's an open book as far as like how to construct hauntings and make them effective. And also worth noting that the most enduring ghost stories that we have are not generally the true stories. They're the ones that capture our imagination, make us really think about what comes next or what else is out there. The reason why a lot of ghost stories are and that's one of those things where people get very upset or angry at the falseness of a story. It's like no, the story is absolutely true. The events may be false, but the story and the effect it had on you and what it made you think about and what it made you examine, because that's what ghost stories really were in the beginning. They're trying to explain what happens when you die. When Grog died because he ate the wrong herb, then Thag was over there going, Grog, gone. Everybody's like, why? So they're gathered around the fire going, Grog not gone. Grog's still there. And they're all like, Grog not there. Grog gone. And the conversation becomes open. They start being like, no, Grog, come to me at night. Poke me an eye. And they're like, oh, eye poking Grog. And then, the story lasts. But it helps people deal with things that they don't understand. And that's what a ghost story really is. It's an opportunity to examine things we don't understand. And so when they're sensational, they stick out. We remember them.
So we're not here to debunk anything at all.
No,
so
never.
I just present facts.
Well, and in the case of if you're trying to sell a movie, you have to be a gifted storyteller.
Exactly. So maybe it happened, maybe it didn't happen.
It's a good movie, though.
It is. It's an excellent,
very good.
It's an excellent movie, and you should definitely watch it during your spooky season. And that's the point of this little mini series, is to discuss these hauntings.
Although, don't watch Haunting in Connecticut 2.
Don't watch that. Apparently,
it's not the strongest storytelling, I'll say.
Yeah. So. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will have a few more for the rest of October so that you can watch another based on a true story type
There's so
movies.
many horror movies that are based on true stories.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Send in your ghost mail.
Yes, and send in your ghost mail. If you have a ghost story that you would like to tell us, then go ahead and send it to ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com, and that is going to be the best place for me to find it. Every once in a while, people will send us messages on TikTok or Instagram or things like that. I get a lot of fluffy type stuff, so I tend to not even look in those. So if you want to make sure that we see them, send it to ghost mail. That's going to be the best way. And then also, if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, you can also send it to ghostmail. Any photos that you want to send, it's all best to send it there. We're always checking that. So, but with that, though, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.